What's up guys, it's your favorite Q Coach. Welcome back to another reaction video. In this video, we're going to be reacting to a TrackMan Maestro video. You guys, if you don't know who he is, I'm going to explain who he is here in a sec. But without further ado, let's go do this thing. So welcome back to the channel guys. You guys are new to Q Golf Japan. We do a bunch of videos like this every single week. So what you got to go do is hit that little red subscribe button. Smash the like button. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about the TrackMan Maestro. And as always, hit that little bell notification. You guys are going to get notified every single time we drop a video. So like I said in the intro, we're going to be reacting to a TrackMan Maestro video. The TrackMan Maestro, as it might sound in his name, is he was famous for being the maestro or the expert on TrackMan. He became popular, I believe, around 2008, 2009 range, pretty much right when TrackMan became popular. And basically, he was very controversial at that time just because all the American golf instructors were teaching the old school ball flight laws, and he was teaching the new ball flight laws, which TrackMan had pretty much come up with. So in this particular video, what we're going to be taking a look at is an interesting concept of launch angle, and then kind of how can you calculate launch angle. And hopefully it's going to lead it back to a major point that I think is kind of missing here in the Japan industry about handle first, how much handle first you should get, and all that good stuff. So I think this video is going to be really important for you instructors out there who might think that you need to get your players to have a lot of handle first. Hopefully this video will kind of give you some ideas on if it's good or bad, but let's go hop in. I'm going to go press play and then we're going to go react to it.
You are seeing a general swing direction. You are not seeing club path. Now, let's move on to the next subject, and this was a very interesting question. A gentleman said, Joe, how can a PGA Tour player take a six iron with about 30 degrees of loft, and how can he launch that ball at about 14 or 15 degrees? Because TrackMan has shown us that the average tour player launches the ball at about 15 degrees, 14 or 15.
Okay, so in this video, the TrackMan Maestro is basically answering questions that he's getting either on his Facebook group or Twitter group or whatever, but he's answering some questions, and one of the questions was, how can a tour player launch a 6-iron at 14 degrees? Again, that's if you go on TrackMan website, that would be the tour average with a 6-iron, and a 6-iron usually has about 30 degrees. So in this little section of this video, the TrackMan Maestro is going to answer this question. Some things that I think you should have for context, first off, is just understand that we're talking about PGA Tour players, right? So PGA Tour players tend to have a much more club head speed than a lot of you amateur golfers out there. And then later on the video, when he talks about how much handle first or shaft lean that these players are actually getting to get this 14-degree launch angle, I think you guys are going to be really surprised. So I'm going to let him talk through a little bit more, we'll react a little bit more, and then we'll go from there.
15 degrees. Well, as I said, I think that's a great question. And this is how it happens. Club's got 30 degrees of loft on it. Well, as you know, great strikers of the golf ball, they have the handle forward. Some people call it shaft lean.
Handle first.
Handle lean. Whatever, that's not important. So let's say that by doing that, the hosel of this golf club is leaning forward 4 degrees at impact. Let's just say that.
Okay, so let me kind of explain that real quick. So if you guys didn't quite catch that, he's talking about a PGA Tour player who launches the ball at 14 degrees. He's going to say in this example, they're leaning the shaft about 4 degrees, right? So 4 degrees would look maybe something like that, just ever so slightly. So it's not looking like this, which you see in a lot of pictures here in the golf magazines when they talk about handle first. Nowhere near that much. It's looking actually just a little bit. Again, this is a PGA Tour player with quite a lot of speed, right? So just remember, keep this in context here.
Well, that means the loft went from 30 immediately down to 26 degrees.
30 minus 4, 26.
Now we have a phenomenon that's going to occur when the golf ball is struck, and let's say it's struck right about where my fingernail is.
Okay, and this is an important part of the video that you guys have to get, or else this might not make sense to you. So he's about to start talking about vertical gear effect, which I'm going to let him explain because I think he does a great job, and I don't want to take away from his video. But strike point with vertical gear effect is very, very important. The reason why he's trying to be very specific with the strike point is because if it had struck in a slightly higher spot or a slightly lower spot, the vertical gear effect amount would have changed ever so subtly, as well as the numbers that he's about to cite would also change ever so subtly, right? So just make sure that you understand that a very specific point that he's pointing to right here where his fingernail is, that's what he's talking about in this section. It's important for this video to make sense.
Right there. We have a phenomenon called vertical gear effect. And with an iron and a driver, it can be dramatically different. What's occurring is this. Because the golf ball is struck, the COG of the club is slightly above the COG of the ball.
So the COG is the center of gravity, right? So the center of gravity does tend to move throughout the golf swing, but we're talking down here at maximum compression is what he's talking about, right at impact.
Club face tends to roll over the ball. Roll over the ball.
Okay, so, and that's the reason why the strike point was so important, because if the strike point was in a slightly different spot to where it aligned with the COG, or the center of gravity, you wouldn't have seen so much of that vertical gear effect. But because the center of gravity of the golf club was above the golf ball, or the golf ball center of gravity, you're going to see that the club wants to roll over this way, right? Just imagine if you see something kind of like this, if I went to go punch this part of my hand with force, because the center of gravity of my hand is above the center of gravity of my fist, it's going to want to go and do this. That's pretty much kind of what he's talking about. That's maybe not a perfect example, but that's a decent example right there.
Further reducing loft. And I would say an average tour player with a 6 iron, 4 or 5 degrees. That would seem about right.
And that's really important to the point of this video. So what he's talking about is, with this particular strike point, it's going to take off about 4 to 5 more degrees. So he was leaning the shaft about 4 degrees, this example right here. Because of vertical gear effect in the strike point, it took off another 4 to 5 degrees. So far, we've already taken off about 8 degrees roughly of loft at this point that we're talking about. So keep that in mind. That 30-degree club is now turned into roughly maybe 22 degrees, 21 degrees, give or take, depending on kind of how those numbers work out.
So we went from 30 to 26 degrees because of the handle lean or the hosel lean. So that took us to 26. And let's say we have 5 degrees of vertical gear effect, the club rolling over the ball. So 26 minus 5, we're down to 21 degrees
21.
of loft. But we're not out of the woods yet.
We're not done.
Calculations to make. And those of you that have seen my past videos, or those of you that are very familiar with TrackMan, you know that the club face with an iron is responsible for about 75% of initial direction. Club path, 25%.
I feel like I'm back in school.
So now, this might be a little bit complicated, so follow me on this. Remember, we have 21 degrees of loft that we're dealing with because we lost 4 degrees to handle lean. We lost another 4 or 5 degrees due to vertical gear effect. So now we've got 21 degrees. So take 21 degrees times 75% of that number.
Okay, so if you guys maybe didn't quite catch what's going on here, he's actually showing you how, if you can kind of figure out, first off, basically how much shaft lean you had at impact, right? So that 4 degrees that we're talking about, plus the strike point and the vertical gear effect number, which would be another 4 to 5. From there, once you find your dynamic loft, is more so what he's talking about. Once you find that dynamic loft, there's a formula you can use to find the launch angle. So, I mean, it's kind of a cool little thing to kind of understand for you instructors out there, but for maybe you clients out there, all you'd have to do is just go look at the launch angle and you can find the launch angle. But this is good for instructors. It's like a cool thing that you can talk about. So he's going to give you an example here. So 21 degrees, which is the dynamic loft, you times that by 0.75, right, 75%, which again, the face angle with irons is roughly about 75% of the initial direction. So that's where he's getting that number from. He's going to show you how to complete the formula here. So I'll let him do it, and we'll go from here.
Because 75% is club face, and the 21 degrees is the club face. And then you go that number plus, and the average tour player hits down on his 6 iron about 4.1 degrees. So,
okay. So if you haven't got the formula so far, you're going to get your dynamic loft, right? So that's 21 degrees in this example. You times that by 0.75, right? So let's do the math for you guys real quick live so you can kind of do this because he didn't do the math. So 21 times 0.75, you get 15.75, right? So that's 15.75, a little upside down there. Now you add on the, what's it called? Oh yeah, you add on the angle attack, right? So he's citing the average angle attack of a tour player, right? So that's adding on a negative 4.1, or you could just minus 4.1. You don't have to add negative 4.1. That's coming out with 11.65, right? So that's so far where we're at with his formula. There's one more little thing that you got to add to as well.
Plus negative 4.1 because it's going down. Negative 4.1
comes out to this.
Times 25%.
And that's the last part right there. Times that by 25% times 0.25, 2.91, right? So 11.25 plus 2.91. You're coming roughly right around this with your launch angle, right? 14.16, which is right where the tour average is. So basically what he just did there in that little section was he took an average tour player, right, who probably hits about 4 degrees of shaft lean. Then he takes the average vertical gear effect with the strike point that was where he was pointing, right? That's going to be another 4 to 5. That gets you down to about 21 degrees, 22, depending on kind of how you do it. Then from there, you're going to times that by 0.75, right? Because, again, irons are 75% of the initial direction. Then once you get that number, you have to add a negative 4.1 degrees because the average tour player is hitting down on the ball, negative 4.1 degrees. If they're hitting up, it'd be a different equation, correct? But they're hitting down, right? So make sure that you understand that. And then from there, you times it by 0.25, and then you add that to the original number of 11.25, and you come out with a 14.16 launch angle, and that is going to be the average tour player. So I'm going to not play through the rest of this video. He actually talks about multiple other points in this video, so I'll link it down below. It's actually a really great video, and I think it might, it's in English, unfortunately, but if you guys speak English and you're instructors out there here in Japan, I highly recommend go checking it out. There's a lot of good information in it. But to wrap this video up, what did we kind of learn here? Well, first off, in my personal opinion, we learned that a tour player only leans the shaft forward about 4 degrees. Now, because of vertical gear effect, right, that's going to take off the other 4 to 5 degrees, as well as the angle attack of negative 4.1. Those are all coming together to get our launch angle, and the launch angle is kind of what you're seeing when you initially see the flight of the golf ball. You're kind of seeing the launch angle. So what I'm trying to say here is if a PGA Tour player is only taking off 4 degrees or only leaning the shaft 4 degrees with the club head speed they have, why would you be teaching a lady golfer or like a junior golfer who doesn't have a lot of club head speed to lean the shaft like 10 degrees? I'm seeing some of these instructors in Japan, some of the positions that they're showing their clients to get into are literally taking off like 20 degrees a handle first, which if you know vertical gear effect and you know angle attack, you know that that player is going to launch the ball so low they're never going to get it in the air if they actually do what the coach wants them to do. So I'm hoping this video makes more sense for you instructors out there on why you wouldn't want to teach a player to lean the shaft a lot, especially if they don't have a lot of club head speed. Remember, the average tour player is probably only taking off about 4 degrees with a 6-iron, 4 degrees of handle first. That's not a lot if you think about it. 4 degrees is very, very small. So hopefully this video made sense. Also, for you instructors out there who are watching this, I'm actually opening up my lessons for instructors to start watching. So if you are interested in watching my lessons, you want to come, we have a Yokohama locations, we have Tsukuba locations, and Osaka locations. If you want to watch our lessons, make sure to go hit up one of the links down below. It's going to take you to a landing page to where you can basically reach out to us, get our email, get in touch, and then we can give you kind of the schedule of our lessons, and we can talk about what the service includes, kind of what you would get out of seeing one of my lessons and all that good stuff. So that link will be down below. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys again in the next video.